Hello and welcome to Richland Spotlight, where we shine a light on the people, programs, and places happening here in Richland. Joining me today is Executive Director of the Port of Benton, Scott Keller. Welcome, Scott. I'm glad to have you here. And the reason I brought you on the program is we're going to talk about something that's really neat happening out in the Horn Rapids Business Park, specifically the Tri-City Enterprise Center. And what that is we're becoming a new hot spot. Tell me what I mean by that.
Well, I think what we're seeing out there is a cluster of spirits, beer, and wine, and a barbecue place. Out there before, Mike, there was nothing to bring people out to the North Richland area, at least off of 240. I think it's great how it got started. I've been watching the TEC for about 20 years now, and when we have two breweries there, a bakery, a winery, and now a solar spirits people, it's a cluster of gathering place for people.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of the area, because this was built actually by the City of Richland in 1987 as a business incubator site, and then later acquired by WSU. And then in 2011, the port took it over and took it entirely new direction. Tell me a little bit about the history and why you looked at this and said, wow, this is an exciting place.
I started at the Port of Benton in 1989, and it was during that time the construction of the TEC was just starting, and I thought it was a great idea. It was an incubator type building for small business. And I kind of watched it as it grew through the years, and kind of waited for the 20-year, because I knew the city had a 20-year commitment to own and operate the building. And I was kind of waiting as it evolved in my career at the port, and thought if at any time that it became available for purchase, we'd at least look at it. And it did. And we had to wait a couple years. I think it sold originally in 2008 or 9. And what happened, the story is I found out that White Bluffs Brewery had opened up. I stopped in there, talked to the owner. I saw that the building was kind of getting run down a little bit. I said, who's your landlord? I thought it was actually WSU Tri-Cities. He said it was WSU in Pullman. They owned it. And so shortly after that, I went back to the port. I called WSU in Pullman. I talked to the real estate gentleman, and he was less than receptive of us even inquiring on purchasing the building. He said it was an investment for Pullman and they were going to keep it. Well, that was in November. Their new budget came out in January. Shortly after that, I received a phone call from the same gentleman begging us to purchase the building, and we did.
So now, the port has been very successful with its wine village in Prosser. Do you see this as kind of a newer, smaller, but village like that?
What we're going to concentrate on, just for information, White Bluffs has grown out of their area. They're going to move into a building just behind where they're at right now. And we are going to concentrate on looking for either a winery or a brewery or possibly another distillery, something that will fit into the cluster of the food and beverage area there. We also have 5 acres total. And there are building sites that are available on the piece of property that the TEC is on right now, that if somebody wanted to build a small brewery or eating establishment, we'd be more than receptive and we'd help them out.
Let's talk about some of the tenants there. Obviously you mentioned White Bluffs. Tell me about some of the other tenants and their successes.
What was interesting is when we were negotiating with WSU Pullman, we were also being approached by Ethos Bakery to start a bakery. And I think they'd actually talked to Pullman, didn't get a very warm and fuzzy from them. And the minute we closed on the building, we signed a lease with Ethos Bakery, who has now opened up a second restaurant in North Richland at the Innovation Center. And also, during our negotiations with WSU, we got approached by Shrub Step, a smokehouse brewery. They wanted to build a barbecue brewery type atmosphere restaurant, and we purchased the building, worked with them on improving their space, and we were immediately acquired 2 other tenants that fit into the cluster out there.
And then you have, for instance, a Burma out there and some of the other what would be non-food tenants.
Correct.
But the total space, there's plenty of room to grow then.
There is. We've got 5 acres. You got Reactor. You've got Reactor, who's been there quite a while. That's another thing that has happened as we've become the national park. The Reactor is going to probably grow out of their space. It's going to open up another area where we can maybe attract another brewery or winery or something like that. But that's a great phenomenon too, that our national park recognition there.
I'm glad you clarified that because I use the acronym BURMA.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm so used to that that some people don't even realize what we're talking about. But now, what have other people, not necessarily the tenants, but customers and other developers said about the direction that TEC is going?
I've heard nothing but great things about it. I mean, we have 60 buildings, and the one thing I've heard is I do live out at Horn Rapids, and my neighbors love it. There's some place they can go that's fairly close, grab something to eat on the way home or whatever, and it's just, I've heard nothing but positive things. And I think nothing more is going to happen out at Horn Rapids but growth. I mean, we've got a new housing development. There's still talk of hotel motels out there. There's the new baseball fields. And Horn Rapids, as you know, with the new freezer, with the new loop track, it's just growing. It's going to be huge industrial development, which is going to need services out in that area.
Now you have other people who are choosing to locate there. Solar Spirits is a great example. They're just down the street. Do you think that some of their do you think that they chose to locate in the area maybe is based on what's happening at TEC?
I think they're really smart guys, and if you can walk between a distillery, a winery, and I guess there's going to be a nightclub where Thomas O'Neill is, which is walkable, and a couple breweries and a bakery, which they do serve food, I think. I mean, what a great synergy to have a cluster there, similar to the Prosser Vintners Village, where you can walk to different and taste things and purchase the goods and items that they have.
Well, our young professionals can't say there's nothing to do now,
That's
can
right.
they? So what's the long-term plan then?
I think for TEC, we're going to continue to keep the cluster look at, the brewery, the any type of food type service out there. We actually would like to purchase maybe some additional lands from the City of Richland and maybe in that area and keep that type of a cluster going in the future.
So if a potential business is interested, how do they contact the port?
Contact the Port of Benton and probably contact Diane Howard. And she's our Director of Economic Development and Governmental Affairs, and she knows the TEC from day one because I think she started working there years ago.
Any other plans for other wine and food and beverage type villages here in Richland?
There's always stuff that's happening, especially in the Innovation Center area where WSU Tri-Cities is. There's been talk of dorms. That didn't come to fruition, but it's going to happen. Something's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more students up there. We see that place, which is a new restaurant. We see the Ethos expansion, and we have some land there that's ready for additional growth. And I think we could see some of that phenomena up there.
Very good. Well, we've already run out of time, so I want to thank you for joining me here, Scott, on Richland Spotlight, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.